Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Pnoid News. I'm going to tell you what. So, we've been standing here on my channel, basically trying to figure out where we are and how it is that we got here. And I think that's an important mentality to understand, is the hows and the whys of what's going on are just as important as the what is actually going on a lot of the times. And this is where our modern media fails us quite often, because they don't really explain the background of why we're doing what we're doing. So today I want to address postmodernism, and I want to use a guy like Jordan Peterson to really understand what it is that people actually think about what postmodernism is, and explain why it is that what he's saying may be partially right, but he's not actually getting into the reasons why people are thinking the way that they do.
Now, hypothetically, it's an attitude of skepticism, irony towards rejection of grand narratives, ideologies, and universalism, criticizes objective notions of reason, human nature, social progress, absolute truth, and objective reality. It's predicated on the idea that the reason that you categorize, especially, that the reason that you categorize is to marginalize. You categorize to marginalize to obtain power. Power is pretty much all there is. There's other elements of postmodernism. One of them is that human nature is merely a social construct. See, the reason for that, as far as I'm concerned, and this is a postmodern critique as well, I'm going to move the center to the margin and the margin to the centers. Why would you think that human nature is only a social construct? Well, here's why. It's because that means you could construct it any way you want to. That was a very common idea among the communists. That's why Mao.
So he's correct that postmodernism developed in the mid-20th century as a rejection of modernism and wasn't extended across many disciplines. Postmodernism is associated with deconstructionism and post-structuralism. Various authors have criticized postmodernism as promoting obscurantism and abandoning Enlightenment rationalism and scientific rigor, and as adding nothing to analytical or empirical knowledge. So really, to understand postmodernism, we have to understand modernism. Okay, and modernism is described as essentially based on a utopian vision of human life and society and a belief in progress or moving forward. It assumed that certain ultimate universal principles or truths, such as those formulated by religion or science, could be used to understand or explain reality. So, I think it's best described as the difference between these two buildings. This is a skyscraper, right? Basically, it's a modernist structure. It starts very big at the bottom and then whittles its way up to a point at the top. The idea of modernism is if you work very hard, you will achieve enlightenment in whatever it is that you're doing. If you practice and practice and practice, you will become good at what you do. Postmodernism, on the other hand, is more like this building. It's a ideology of screw it, who cares, because nothing, really matters in the end of the day. Now, the whys are where we really get into what's important. Now, why is it that we went from modernism to postmodernism? The reality is that it came out of World War I and World War II. Basically, the structure of how our entire civilization existed, Western civilization as a whole. That includes, whether you're talking about the Mediterranean or Eastern Europe or, like European or America. The reason why all this changed is because of the fact that all of a sudden you went from having a man who protected his wife and children, right, and worked really hard, and he was also a soldier, who could be called on to defend his homeland, to defend his country, defend whatever, into a war situation where, as a soldier, it was mechanized. It was a meat grinder in World War I. And in World War II, there were tanks and planes, and then basically the atomic bomb happened. And during the 50s and 60s with the Cold War with Russia, on a regular basis, you would have children who would practice hiding underneath of their desks on a regular basis to hide from a possible nuclear bomb that might go off in their neighborhood. Now, this is an important ideology to understand because once you start understanding that this is the formative thoughts of these postmodernist thinkers, right? Is that you go, okay, the truth is you went from an industrialized, an industrialized society, right? Where like everybody was industrializing, moving to cities, becoming successful, becoming rich, you know what I mean? And having the opportunity to join the middle class, to a society where everybody was kind of comfortable, but it could end at any moment because you could have a bomb dropped on you. And on top of that, your place in society and life no longer mattered as much as it used to, because the truth of the matter is that a soldier was no more important than a bomb or a tank or a plane. A tank or a plane could kill, 100,000 people or 500,000 people or 1,000,000 people with a nuclear bomb. What is the purpose in having a soldier? This destroyed man's place in society. And we are arguing and trying to get back to the very basics today, even after all of this happened. And that's why it is that we're having this argument. That's why it is we're having the problems that we're having. And we're not really discussing it as usual, right? Because we don't have the ability to have these type of conversations in general. Because individuals need a place. Individuals need a position. Individuals need a spot to be. And we're moving further away from that every day as our society becomes more automated, as our society becomes more interconnected. And the place that a human being has in society in general is being lost every day. This is why guys like Jordan Peterson are actually pretty wrong about their ideas about postmodernism. Because postmodernism is nothing more than a reaction to what happened in World War I and World War II. And then the thinkers that came after that and all the media that was consumed by baby boomers and Gen Xers who are still alive and with us today and are making policy and voting on policy and are in charge of all these countries. Their formative years were spent with this as their primary ideology. So, I know that postmodernism is almost over, and we're about to head into a new ideology altogether, right? And I know some people, I heard something about something like a technical thing or whatever the nonsense is. Truth is, the whole world has stopped having children, and we're about to go through a very hard period, which will change the ideology altogether again. But I want my people who watch my content to be able to understand not just your ideology, not just my ideology, but everybody's. So we're better versed in what happens every day. I think it's important. Anyway, I'm Tom Peace of Pnoid News, man. I hope y'all like, share, and subscribe. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Peace be like one, my brothers.